very interesting what you said on stage. When you go into photograph an artist, it's like going into a deeply personal space. You said you went in with your camera like a psychoanalyst. What did you see as a psychoanalyst? What did you actually see about different people?
I've always believed that the photographers can see more. Having spent 35 years, I was 18 when I first picked up the camera. Looking into people's eyes, I think a photographer is a part psychoanalyst himself. And if you are reasonably curious about people, you do a little bit of research, and when you meet them, what you take away from that meeting is quite unlike as how much of text you might have. I think eyes have a way of communicating, and that they say the human body and the mind makes up value judgment of somebody in the first 10 seconds of when you meet them. So I think that, coupled with a camera, gives you an insight into the person. Yes, and often when I go to meet an artist, I'm obviously familiar with his work. So his work, his presence, his studio is like a pretty good psychoanalytic way of looking at him.
But you know what Ravinder said about you, that you're very minimalist, and you actually went in and just walked around and made him feel so comfortable. Um, is that a deliberate choice?
Yeah, I think my practice wears about minimalism. I'm all about subtraction. I don't want to keep the unnecessary. So I go without lights. I go with sometimes a camera, sometimes a phone. And the idea is to shoot. I don't want to create an atmosphere and make too much of ceremony about anything that I do. So I'm actually virtually through with a photograph in the first 10 minutes. Then I pretend, because if I've come all the way to Vizag from Delhi, I got my photograph in the first 10 minutes. But then I go through the motions, giving the artist or the person I'm photographing or the celebrity, whether it is Jeff Bezos or whether it is Prime Minister Modi or Robert De Niro, I have to give them the respect. So they also think the time that you spend with them is also a sign of respect. But yes, I like to do things quietly in whatever I choose to do.
You know, in this book yours, which is Portrait of an Artist, you have got artists at very unguarded, maybe vulnerable moments, what Kishore said. Would you agree that what characterizes this? How would you describe these
I don't
photographs?
think these are unguarded because I didn't come in like I wasn't a fly on the wall. I was there. So it was a something. There's a fundamental dynamic between an artist and an author when I photograph them. There's a part of them that wants to be playful, that wants to be there in the picture, because artists and writers are self-effacing by nature. But the part of them that wants to project something is the one I play with. So it's like a game. It's a very great dynamic, and sometimes it works out beautifully. Sometimes the experience is not so wonderful. I come back after a certain meeting not particularly enamored by an artist, but luckily in this book I've chosen to put the artists who are there, whose work I like, and whose my meeting with them was fun. I wouldn't put somebody who I didn't like.
So, special relationship with JLF. What's the next book going to be about?
The next book is a book called Authors, which is 20 years of JLF. It's a commemorative book of 20 years of JLF. I've been shooting authors for the last 20 years. I have 300 of the world's greatest authors. And JLF in Jaipur is so special. Not a single year in the last 20 years has gone by me without coming to Jaipur, partaking of this city. It's magical, the atmosphere. It's Jaipur at its best, and I want to be part of that.
Kishore, when you look at Rohit's book, Portrait of an Artist, and you look at the way he shot the artists, like what he said, he caught them in the unguarded moment. There's something very, very personal. In fact, personal to the effect that the photographer sometimes not even, you get a sense that the photographer is not present. It's so personal. Would you describe the book as that? And what else stands out about you, about the book?
I think the photographer has to be both very present and very absent because you're capturing an artist at work in a very tender moment, in a very emotional and vulnerable state. That's something that they don't usually share with the public, and nobody, of course, outside knows. You see their exhibitions, you see their works, they're great people, they're celebrated. But their loneliness, their isolation, their silences in their studios is something that I think Rohit set out to capture. I think his photographs speak the words that I've tried to actually give strength to through my own words.
Do you also feel in the range of, because you must have studied the rest of his work, that it's a very wide spectrum, that he actually has covered through his lens? I mean, he's also done journalism in that sense when he's talking about the Kejriwal photograph. So, So is it a very, very wide lens?
Absolutely. I think he comes from an amazing range as far as photography is concerned, both in terms of media photography, photojournalism, as well as, of course, advertising photography. But I think where his strength has always been in portraiture. And we've seen examples of that throughout, the last 20, 30 years, where his portraits of whether politicians or writers, certainly artists, have always captured our imagination. I mean, who can forget that photograph of the Chinese artist, for example, replicating the poor child who drowned as a part of crossing the oceans, etc. So he's also, in a sense, an artist of great emotional strength, but also weakness, that vulnerability. I think that is where his voice comes through.
When Rohit came to photograph you,
Yeah.
how did you feel? Because you were letting a photographer, someone you did not really know perhaps that well, into what is a very private space. And Rohit, when you saw the photographs, what did you feel about it? Because he said he likes to capture the artist, some bit of the artist's personality, humanity, his nature, character should come across in the photograph.
ये जब रोहित हमारे स्टूडियो में आए थे, द सरप्राइजिंग थिंग वाज फॉर मी कि मैं एक्सपेक्ट कर रहा रोहित आएगा, उनके असिस्टेंट्स आएंगे, कोई कैमरा सब लेकर आएंगे, लाइट्स ले, बट ही जस्ट वॉकड इन क्वाइटली एज इफ nobody is there, and he blended it so well with us while working, so we never felt, or I never felt some stranger is there. So he quietly clicked. Even his camera did not make any sound or noise, and that's how he could be part of my process and clicked.
You think he captured the unguarded moment in you?
He tried to capture, but that all people can have to talk about it.